should be good to start. All right, we good? Okay. Good evening. My name is Finty McHugh. You remember me from the hearing back in 2016. I represent Dan McCusker, and we're first of all, thank you for coming out tonight, and hopefully we can make some productive conversation here. I think in 2015, for whatever reasons, we got off on the wrong foot. Dan bought the property from Murphy, who you probably remember, and the property has historically been used as a warehouse. And I think probably one of the things that was hot at that time was flood. There was a lot of people who were angry with the flood use and the property there, and they were concerned. A lot of the concerns that I heard was that that use was spilling over into this property. So I think we kind of, through guilt by association, got kind of thrown in with flood, and there was a lot of flack that we got because of flood. At the same time, I know people had concerns that were more legitimately targeted at us in terms of, they wanted to eliminate trucks from big trucks, commercial trucks from parking out front, because that would inhibit the ability to see coming out the driveway. So we understand those concerns. And we think because the property was historically used as a warehouse, and when Dan bought the property, he actually got a certificate saying R3, residential 3 zoning warehouse. And he relied on that when he bought the property. Now, the case has been on appeal for years. It's coming time and it's well past due time to get it decided. We think we have a good case in that because the property is historically used and as a warehouse, and there never was an intent to abandon it. And the rule on that is if the township wants to change the use, they can't just zone it for a different use. They have to show that you intend to abandon, not only that it was actually abandoned, but that you intend to abandon, which is a tough standard. I've been on both sides of that, and it's tough. So we, I never count my chickens before they're hatched, and I'm not saying that we're definitely going to win on appeal. I just think that the township has a tough burden to show that the use was intended to be abandoned. And there was also at the hearing that night, we weren't allowed to put on evidence about the history of the property. And so I think ultimately, if the case goes all the way through, this will be a warehouse again. But we don't want to go there. We think in the best case scenario, the neighbors, the township, and Dan, we all get together and do something that satisfies everyone's concerns. And we're willing to listen to your concerns and take notes and see what we can do and to resolve this. One of the other things is that if we don't win the appeal, we do think we will, but if we don't win it, the choice that Dan has is to, again, I think it's an illegal requirement, but to demolish the property. I don't think the township can legally require you to say your use has changed to the point where you have to demolish your property and build something new. But if that were the dilemma that we face, the option would be to build a 2-unit residence there. And we think this use is much, much better and more timid than a two residence use. Because if you have 2 residences, you're talking maybe 4, maybe as many as 6 or 8 people. Certainly more people than are there now. Right now, it's very sporadic use by Dan. If there is an office in the front and there's warehouse in the back, but it's not as if there's a lot of activity going back and forth, and there's really no parking other than one truck, just a pickup truck, not a big commercial truck. So we think that the use is timid. It's in keeping with the history, and it's much more preferable than if you had 4 extra cars or so on the streets already with what people are complaining about is an existing parking problem. You also might end up with cars parked out front more often if that is no longer a restricted loading zone. And then that also creates problems just with, their cars being parked there with coming out of the driveway. So if, we think that the density and the use is much more minimal than if we're forced to build 2 units there. And that's really it. It's the, we think it's a good use, and we think we have a good shot at getting it. So we like to kind of, listen to the restrictions if you're, proposing them. We've heard some restrictions, just maybe I'll address them out front, that have overstepped the lines. I think we're willing to consider things in terms of the front of the building and what's allowed to go there, and in terms of like the loading zone. But in terms of, saying what can or can't go in the building, I mean, there's obviously codes that address that. And we would have to keep it in compliance with the codes anyway. But I guess with that said, we'd like to hear what your thoughts are on the use and what you think, if anything, could result in a deal.
So then at this point, we just ask that you guys come up and just speak one at a time into the microphone. And since, again, it's a small group, ask as much, you have as much time as you need.
My name is Paul Kane.
And I'm Margie King, and we live directly across from 8006.
We're in 8003 Arlington. I've been the homeowner at 8003 Arlington since July of 82. I'm still in my starter home, unfortunately. But Dan, what is your business?
My professional business?
Yes.
I have a trucking business.
Trucking business?
Yes. And demolition.
All right. What would you use the property for if
Like to rent it out.
Rent it out? Okay. I have a suspicion of who you want to rent it out to, but we'll leave that be. I brought some photos, some recently taken, some a year or two back. This is Saturday, June 22nd of this year. Nice new truck, a Peterbilt, real big monster. It's in front of your property. It's obscuring the shared driveway, which all the houses in this block on this side use the driveway in the back. And it comes out here. So, I mean, obviously,
It's not my truck.
I didn't say it was,
I
but
don't know whose it is.
okay. It was there for about a half hour on Saturday.
Could have been someone working at the fire job up the street.
No, there's a
No.
dumpster on the back of that should be a clue there, dumpster. The garage door is open on the property. Sunday, our friend Mr. Flood decided to give his truck a bath. He has the
And
dumper.
And the door's open from the garage,
Yeah.
from the 8006 garage.
Okay.
He's using a hose to wash his truck.
That's a Sunday. These are a couple of years older. This is Mr. Flood's.
Mr. McCusker has owned it, though.
Yes. This is forklift going into the property. Another, I guess you call
That's
this a
mine.
forklift? Not yours?
No,
Your
that's mine.
forklift?
The forklift's mine.
Yeah,
Oh, the
but
forklift
you
is?
weren't driving it, though.
And here's the,
Skid steer.
yeah, it's on
It's
public
the
street.
We
You
don't
know,
if
it's
that's-
a one-way street.
it's- Yeah, and it's
know.
going the wrong way, and we don't know whether it's allowed on the street. That we're not sure of.
Okay. Can I submit these photos?
Anything you give to me, I'll bring right to my director.
And
And
it's clear,
CAO.
it's clear that this type of truck is not supposed to be here by the picture, okay?
Yeah, no trucks on the street according to the sign, but that's,
Here.
I know it's hard to enforce with so many people self-employed on my truck.
Mine would.
Well, he's saying that it had always been used as a warehouse. And well, honestly, Mr. Murphy, who you bought it from, was not using it in a proper manner either, okay? And we have pictures of all kinds of junk, but it's not appropriate for this case. But he was not using it in a proper manner. And the person before him had a business. He did flooring, and then he was in security. So he mostly used the office. He used the office, and he came every day. He and his wife came and worked in the office all day long. They parked their car, not truck, anything. They parked their car in front of there. They were there from between about 9 and 5 and during the week. And so we never saw anything else go on. Now, from that, so there was nothing going on the weekends. There was, and so, that's the thing. And honestly, you're talking about having to maybe build a residence. Honestly, I'd rather a residence, but I can't imagine anybody's going to want to live next door to what's at 8004. All right. And, I can understand your dilemma, but you have to understand ours too. All right. We have been put up on for,
14 years.
14 years
14
now.
years.
14 years now, we've been put upon, not totally by you, but your property adds to the frustration that we have because of what's constantly, even your truck, when you come, your trucks are enormous. Our driveway is right across from your property, and sometimes it's not easy getting in and out. So, I mean, we've gotten skilled at backing in around trucks, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. And, I'm sorry. I think we have been, I think the word is not coming, but we've been put upon by,
Yeah.
people.
I mean, we could complain.
We could
every
complain
week
all
if
the
we wanted
time,
to,
but
but
you
we
know
don't.
what? We decided to live. All right, we decided to live. When we open our back windows, we look at trees and plants and normal human activity going on. So, but we have to close our front drapes to not see what goes on across the street. And I don't think that's fair, to be perfectly honest with you. If you built a housing unit, you could provide for parking in back of it, at least one space, maybe two. All right, and just like the duplexes that are there now on the other side of the driveway, I just, that's just how we feel. All right.
For the original owner, when I moved in, Fedor and Company, commercial flooring, every once in a while, there would be a delivery of flooring material. But, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, a delivery there.
Yeah.
And
He
I
had
don't,
like
I
a
don't,
station wagon, didn't he, or something?
I don't recall
I don't
what he
remember what he
drove.
kept
But there
driving.
was,
There
if
were
he
no
did
big
the,
trucks.
yeah,
On a
it
constant
was,
basis.
and it was only Monday through Friday.
And then down towards the end, he did mostly security down near the end, so
Yep.
it wasn't even that. So that's all we have to
Could I
say.
ask you a question?
Sure.
What's that?
I understand and I appreciate that, the fact that you've been put upon for this many years. Is that mostly the flood, the
Well, the
Well,
thing is,
he's a lightning rod.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is that be perfectly honest with you, Flood is using his garage now. He's constantly in and out of there. In the office, we show you the things going in and out of there now. So like he's saying he wants to rent it, but our thoughts are, well, he's going to rent it to Flood, and then Flood is going to be able to, look at us and go, ha, 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 again at us. I got my way. And, it's just not fair.
So, and that's what I'm kind of getting at. So if your biggest concern is that the flood use is going to migrate onto this property,
It already has.
yeah,
That's
so,
the point.
but you want your primary objective is to prevent that from happening. Did
Yeah,
I
I
state
mean,
that
we've
right?
been preventing, we've been trying to prevent. He was grandfathered in to make that, I don't want to go into him at this, but the thing is, he never had the right to expand that yard the way he did, all right?
Into
And
the lawn area of the home.
into the lawn area of the home. We could show you pictures. We didn't think it was appropriate for this meeting, but we could show you pictures of what that property looked like before Mr. Flood bought it. And there were trees. Mrs. Gregel, she had a beautiful, right in the center of that yard that's full of radiators right now. She had a beautiful, every year she put her azalea in it at Easter, and it was big and round. And in spring, it was all different colors. It was beautiful. My children played in that yard. And now it's full of radiators. I have a picture. He had a casket in there once. Took a picture of it. So I don't want to go any more into
Yeah,
that. I
he's a
mean,
junk, well, yeah,
but, you know,
stuff collects in his yard. Yeah, that is not easy to look at,
no.
and you don't want it drifting over
It's not
here.
only it's not only the visual blight. Our neighbor gets more of this than we do because she's on that side of the street. But the noise. I mean, sometimes we're eating our lunch and we're treated to the sound of water heaters being dropped into a truck. Boom, boom. I mean, I'm sorry. This is inhumane what has been done to us. We came here, and I've had health problems. I finally, after that last meeting, I had some health issues, and I had to like give it up. I had to give it over to, over to God because I just couldn't take it anymore. And I'm only here because I just want you to know that, people can't be taken advantage of like this. It's just ridiculous.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys so much.
Good evening. My name is Karen O'Brien. I'm the homeowner at 8010 Arlington Avenue. I bought the house in September of 2006, and prior to that, when I was in grad school, I was renting for 2.5 years at 8014. So I've been on the street since spring of 2003, and I can completely confirm Mr. and Mrs. Kane's testimony that the character of the street has changed tremendously. Again, I'm not going to go into Flood's property because that's not entirely relevant here. However, what is relevant is that Mr. McCusker, you're an absentee landlord, right? I mean, you're not. You're
I'm there occasionally. I'm not there every day.
okay. However, I am home every day because I too have very significant health issues and I can't work right now. I haven't been able to work in 4 years. I'm home every day. The only time I leave is to go to doctor's appointments or to go to physical therapy or to the pharmacy. I'm home every single day. And my house is the second of it's the first set of twins, which is the right-hand side. So I'm right there, the second one from the driveway. And I'm not sure, Mr. McHugh, what you're being told. I understand as a lawyer myself that you need to represent your client to the best of your ability. However, it is disingenuous at best, Mr. McCusker, to represent that Flood is not and has not been using that warehouse since approximately, what was the year?
2015,
Like 2010.
2015.
Oh, right, so from, right,
I bought it in 2015.
15, okay.
Yeah.
The 2010 date is when he expanded the
Right.
the yard
Okay,
into
so-
to the lawn area.
Right,
of the
but we're
home.
going to talk about from 2015. Okay,
Okay.
thanks. Thank you. So I, as a neighbor, as a property owner myself, I empathize with the dilemma you're in. You bought a property thinking that you could use it in a certain way. but you can't, it's not zoned for that. And I don't think that the neighbors who are properly zoned and who are and have been consistently using their properties in a purely residential manner should have our quality of life and our property values diminished by a mistake that is solely between you and the township. Solely between you and the township. I would suggest that the proper recourse would be for the township to reimburse you for the cost to the property, what you paid for it, what you paid in interest and your taxes and fees, and let it go. That's the proper, remedy. And I don't
I
think
think
that,
it's gonna happen.
I don't think it's going to happen, but that is the proper remedy. That the neighbors should not be put upon. And I know as well as you know, Mr. McHugh, that the statutory purpose of the Pennsylvania Model Zoning Code is to preserve and protect residential property values. Period, end of story. That is the statutory purpose. And to represent, I understand you have to make a coherent legal argument to the court because you've been hired to do so, but for you to say that you you're trying to excuse me, let me just get a sip of water. To structure your argument by trying to separate Mr. McCusker's current use and potential future use from how Flood's using it is disingenuous at best. I don't know what you're being told. I don't know what you see, Mr. McCusker, given that you're not there every day. But Mr. Flood has been using that property. He has a key to the office.
I gave him a key.
Right, so he's already using it. He's already renting it from you,
He's not
either
renting
de
it.
facto or de jure. He's already renting it from you. I have pictures. Let me just finish, please. I
I
have
let him use it.
pictures.
I'm not gonna deny that. I let him go in there.
Right,
a
so he's
neighbor.
already using it. You're already using it illegally. You sat there and you made it sound when you were responding to Mr. and Mrs. Kane, well, I don't know. I mean, I might rent it to him. I might not. You're already letting him use it, whether you're getting consideration for it or not. I don't care. You're already letting him use it illegally.
Against that.
I am categorically against it. And Mr. and Mrs.
That's not
Kane,
a,
Mainly because they're using it as it's meant to be used.
right. And also our other neighbors, Jason and Linda Gong, who are at 8016, who couldn't make it here today. They, I believe, told you that they're opposed to it. And they've come to most of the meetings. They just have a lot going on now and couldn't make it. And I feel really bad for you. But I don't think that the neighbors and the residential neighborhood should be continued to be brought down in our quality of life, the noise, the blight, the constant trucks. And I too have innumerable photos, recent ones and ones going back to 2015, photos, video, just what's today, Thursday, just Monday or Tuesday, there were 3 trucks parked in front of your property. The garage door was open. Flood's coming in and out. He's already using it, Mr. McHugh, to represent to the court that he's not, which I haven't read the pleading, so I'm not saying that you have, but to make that argument to try to separate the current use or any potential future use from Mr. Flood is disingenuous. It is already being used. It has been used by him continuously since at least 2016. And one of our neighbors who was a homeowner at 8014 who moved because of this issue. She moved to Drexel Hill because she couldn't deal with it anymore. She has innumerable photos too. The only reason there aren't more people here is because 8008, 8012, and 8014 are now owned by absentee landlords who rent out all the units. They don't care. They don't even take care of their own property, much less care what's going on in the neighborhood. So I personally am categorically opposed to the township, or to the courts, I should say, allowing a de facto commercial use, and that's what this is. Make no mistakes, and I will submit reams of photos and videos going back to 2016 at least, to the township and to you. And that brings me to another point, which is that I'm going to talk to the township and to the court about filing amicus briefs so that all this stuff is on the record. We have a constitutional right to be heard, and even though we're not parties, we can still file amicus briefs, and we're considering doing that because there's just so much evidence that we, as the homeowners who are there all the time, like I've been there consistently since August of 2018. Every single day I'm at home. I don't travel, I don't go to the shore, I don't do anything except be at home and give myself medical treatment, and I see it all the time. It is not sporadic, it is not occasional. It has been used commercially, and I understand that you're using that legally to try to set up, I guess, a prior nonconforming use argument, but I don't think that that's even true, because our prior neighbor who lived at the big house across the street at the corner of Windsor, he was literally born in that house, and he had testified at one of the hearings way back that when that land was virgin and had not been developed yet, and he's got to be like pushing 80 at this point. So he more than predates all of this, that land being used, being developed. It was nothing, you know, and that empty shell of a garage was put up after the zoning code went into effect. So it's not technically or legally a prior nonconforming use. And the use has changed. I mean, even when the guy you bought it from, Murphy, towards the end before he sold it, he was starting to use it regularly with trucks. But before that, so that was what, like say 2014. I didn't even know that somebody owned that. I never saw anybody coming and going. I never heard anything. Nobody was blocking our driveway. Nobody was in our, you haven't been in our driveway, which you're not allowed to, but you have not. So thank you for that. But the driveway is still blocked. It's extremely dangerous. There are still kids on the street. I've almost been hit a number of times. It wasn't used the way it's being used now. It was truly used sporadically and occasionally. Now it's being used on weekends. There are trucks on weekends, there's noise. So I take issue with the representations that you made here tonight because they're not true, in fact. So again, I'm very sorry for the predicament you're in. If there were a way for you to get a legitimate use out of it that would recompense you and where you could have an income from it, I'd be all for it, but I don't see a solution, you know? The solution, as I said, I think the only solution is for the township to pay you. They do owe you. I don't dispute that. That is probably never gonna happen, but I will fight this tooth and nail. And I don't know what else to say. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But what you're representing and what we see and what our neighbors see is they're light years apart. So
No, I appreciate all that. And just so you know, I mean, on the appeal, we're not putting in evidence about what the use has been and whether.
yeah, because there's no new evidence allowed,
Yeah,
right?
There's no new evidence.
Right.
And it's not something that the court's even gonna really, they'll be asking us why we would even submit something like that. But our argument on the appeal is just that the historical use of the property is what it is, and therefore we should be able to continue it as a grandfathered, non-conforming,
Right.
as the lawyers say, non-conforming use. But
Right.
and I think what you've said is very similar in a lot of ways to what the Canes have said, is that it's the quality of life issues, and a lot of it is related to what the floods, the flood use would be at this property.
Is at this property. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
and
Is
I'm
at
not
this
trying to
property.
misrepresent whether he's there or not. You're there more than I am.
Right.
But I mean, if what I'm hearing is that we don't want flood at this property, is that something that the groups of you would be willing to accept if it was a, let's say he said he's going to rent it, if he's renting it to, just a different type of user, a plumber or somebody else who has equipment and stuff to keep in there and an office in the front, it seems kind of amenable to that. to something like that, that it wouldn't be, first of all, it wouldn't be flood, but it would be something more in keeping with the historical use where you might have somebody in the office during the day, but it's not as if, customers or anything like that are coming and going.
Um, I- Looking forward, I still see problems with that because we would retain no control over, we don't have any control now, so we wouldn't be retaining anything. We would have no control over who Mr. McCusker could lease it to, and no, I'm opposed to it being used commercially, period, end of story, now or in the future. And I'm sorry, but I have to protect my rental income, which I'm not renting it out right now, but I might be moving soon and renting it out. I need to protect my property value. And it's already been diminished. Anybody who pays attention is going to have, anybody who is trying to sell their house on that block, now that the market is not its height that it was 2 years ago, anybody who's paying attention, a potential purchaser, they're not going to buy. Margie and Paul, forget it. I feel terrible for them. They're on the other side of the street and they've got to look at it. But no, I personally, I have to put my foot down. I'm sorry, but I categorically oppose any commercial use of it. And I also highly doubt that the township would give you the necessary permits or licenses, whatever, to knock it down and put up a residence. They already said that on the record. I'm not sure if you were counsel then. There's no parking.
I was told I would have to put a residence up.
Right,
Lawyer.
right.
That's
I remember hearing, but my recollection was
Didn't
that,
hear, he said, you'll have to make it a residence.
who said that? One of the,
Who was the lawyer? for
The
township?
lawyer at the
I
time
don't
was
know who it
Mick.
right, I do remember that, but then I thought somebody followed up and said, and that's not going to happen. We're not going to give you. But
Well,
I'm not,
the thing is, the township
can't-
can't tell us you
What I
must
can
pay
and can't
taxes
do.
on the property,
No,
which
I
you've been doing for 9 years,
I
and
get
but you
that.
can't use it.
I get
That's
that.
not a legal position that anybody can take.
absolutely,
So-
and I understand that
No,
more
that's
than
the-
anybody.
Yes. So
I get
I would
that.
like to get something, if we can get to some kind of middle ground where we can shake hands on it, it's better, because otherwise, if he just gets a flat out, warehouse permit for this, then you have zero control over it.
Right,
And I know we're not guaranteed to get that. I'm not saying
of
we're
course.
guaranteed.
But
to
no,
get
I
it.
even said we
But
would
it's
have no
just,
control, right.
There's an opportunity now where we can put, it sounds like a lot of the heat is coming from flood, and if we can put, and I haven't talked to him about it, and I need to, but, if we can kind of keep the flood out of it, no pun intended, but just to keep that use out of his property, if that can be a solution, it's something to consider. Maybe I just keep, hearing that maybe that's the way out. I don't
Well,
know.
would he enter into a restrictive covenant with us?
Well, it would be a zoning type of a settlement where if it's a zoning settlement, it's on record. If it's not allowed to be used, let's say we can define what the flood use is.
Mhm.
Say it cannot be that. And that's important, because then it would be Mr. Flood or any successor. So it's not like Mr. Flood can sell to
Right, it would
Mr.
run with
Smith
the
and they can
land,
do.
right.
So, you put that control on it. It's a zoning, it's effective as a zoning hearing board says, you may do it for this and nothing else. It runs with the property.
Like a deed restriction.
Like a deed.
Well, that's what, a restrictive covenant would be like. My impulse is to still say no, just because of the control issue. But that is, to me, probably the more palatable of no palatable compromises. And I'm not trying to make life difficult for you. I really, probably more than anybody else, I can see all the issues. I can see, I'm the one who said, I do feel like you should be recompensed by the township. You really got screwed, pardon my completely unprofessional language, but you got screwed. But so have we. So it seems like of the three sort of, not in the legal sense, but the three parties, the three concerned, it's you, the neighbors, and the township. The township's the linchpin. What are they going to do for you? What are they going to do for us? Right, exactly. So, I don't know if the township reps have anything to say, but I don't feel,
Are any of them here?
I think Miss Blackwell is here. She's our township council rep, Miss Blackwell. But I'm not sure if she was planning to speak, so I'm not trying to throw her under the bus or anything, but she did come tonight, so thank you for that. But, yeah, I feel like I need to say categorically, no. Because I can see sort of the slippery slope down the road. And I am truly sorry for that. But that is my feeling as a resident and as someone who has been practicing law for 19 years. And I'm familiar with workarounds that can happen when compromises like you're proposing go into place. You know, we would have no control. We still don't have any control, but at least if it's categorically denied, then we're protected. So I apologize, but that's my very well considered opinion. This is not a knee jerk thing. It's a very well considered opinion. I've done legal research. I've thought about it long and hard. And I wish that there were a compromise that would make you happy and wouldn't ruin our quality of life, but I don't see one other than the one I suggested. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But those are my feelings.
You guys have anything
Yep.
else?
And I should thank you for the opportunity. I mean, I know the court sort of told you had to, but I still appreciate your sitting down with us and letting us know that, that we had a voice, because up until now, I feel like we haven't had a voice. So,
The township is who asked us. which is-
okay,
We asked for this.
okay.
as
Well,
part
thank you
of,
for that.
Any type of discussing any possible future settlement.
Right.
We wanted to, right, we know it went to the zoning hearing board, we know that the community was involved. We wouldn't want to do anything without getting that community input
And I'm sorry,
first.
could you say your name for the record? Because I don't
Yeah,
know
of
who you
course.
are.
So my name's Joshua Chass.
Oh, you're Joshua. Okay,
Yeah,
great. Nice to meet you.
And nice to meet you as well. I'm the manager of planning and zoning.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Josh.
Yeah. And then, if you don't mind, Margie and Paul, could we kind of ask you the same question? Is there any conditions that you would want to see that would take this from a definitely no to a maybe or a yes? Is there any conditions that you would want
Uh,
for the applicant?
We haven't thought of that.
No. I have a hard time thinking that there would be anything, mainly because we see what has happened, when it's been used even before him, when it was used as a warehouse by Mr. Murphy. You know, it didn't work out well.
If we lose, it will be a warehouse, though. This is our only chance to. I mean, if we win, great, it stays, but
I don't, if it was a residential neighborhood, it should have never been put there in the first place, right? And, just because people did things wrong for all these years, some of the people that did things wrong were less abusive. And we did not even realize that that was the case until, the other property started, getting used in a way it was not supposed to be used. And then, you do a lot of research, but I don't know. I don't see any way.
okay. No, I appreciate that. Thank you guys for coming up and
you.
speaking honestly. Please come on. Please come on up.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one more thing. By way of factual sort of testimony, even though I'm not under oath, but when I moved onto the street in April of 2003, I was home for a few months studying for the bar exam. So I was home all the time. And then after that, I was home in the evenings and on the weekends. And until Murphy bought the property in whatever year that was, a few years before I think you purchased it, like maybe 2010 or something. I never saw anybody coming and going from that property. I never saw any trucks. I never saw a human being. I never saw any cars, ever. I thought it was just an empty, I never thought about it. But, so I don't think factually, even if the property were erected before the imposition of the zoning code, I don't think that you're going to be able to make out a prior non-conforming use argument, because from the woman who moved from the street, there was nobody coming and going until Murphy bought it, and all of a sudden it was like, oh wait, there's a property there that we've been looking at all this time. So, yeah. So thank you again for your, for the opportunity.
Thanks. Anybody else?
I apologize for being late. My name is Laura Wentz. I'm councilwoman at large. I was actually on council as of 2018. I am not here speaking on behalf of the township, just as a councilwoman, and I live in the area. I have, as a councilwoman, for the 6 years that I've been on council, residents have come to complain about floods property. I didn't realize that that warehouse behind it was not even part of his property. Just to let, I did not realize until residents came to our council meeting last night to let us know that it was a separate property and that it had been in appeals. So, but residents have over the years come to complain about the trucks outside. Obviously, the things they've already expressed with floods property, and now hearing that he's using your warehouse, that just is increasing the truck issue. Every time I go to the Bond Shopping Center, because the residents keep coming to us and talking to us about the truck issue, I always look down the street when at the stop sign at Arlington, and I always see trucks on both sides of the street on a regular basis. So I would say, and I hadn't fully realized that that it wasn't technically zoned for that commercial building at the time, that it's really residential. In theory, if it could go back to a residential space, but where you did not need parking on the street, then that would probably be the best mode. But I apologize that I was late, so I don't know if that was something that you had brought up at the beginning of the meeting. Returning it back so that you can get some kind of income for owning this property. I also did not realize that you've owned it for 9 years and have not been able to get income for it. So I'm very sorry about that. I also have no expectation of the township giving you any money back. I apologize for that as well. We're kind of on the verge of bankruptcy, so due to other things that have nothing to do with you.
Right.
So, but I would love for you to be able to get an income from the property. If there was any way to make it back into a residential so that you could do that, that would be.
It was never a residence, it was always a warehouse. It was never like a 2-bedroom or 4-bedroom house. It was always a warehouse from as
Oh.
far back as I know. Originally, it was a sawmill, I heard, way back. I don't know how far back, but I never looked at the record.
Because of the creek isn't there,
The railroad.
the railroad is right there, was right there. Okay,
Originally, it was a sawmill.
okay. Well, I guess I need to do a little more research.
The
about
flood property was a sawmill, or that?
No, that building was originally used as a sawmill.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay.
That's what I was told by a guy who used to be across the street, Ted.
Okay. Right.
He knew more than me, and I didn't. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, but I do know that the concern of trucks on the street has been one that we've heard.
I don't know where trucks were parked on both sides because it's a narrow street. I park my pickup on one side, I have to fold my mirrors in.
Right, yes, no, I know. I've seen trucks on the property, on the side of the street opposite from your property. But there have been times that I've seen ones along the corner with floods. And then thusly, I guess yours as well. So, but,
Yeah.
so
I have a
just-
pickup truck. My pickup is a 4-door.
Uh-huh,
It's my family car.
right. So is there a parking space behind the warehouse itself? Is there?
Just the common driveway
Mhm.
and the street.
So the common driveway leads you to no parking behind your building?
I think the
It's
building goes
for-
almost all the way back, does it
It
not?
goes straight back alongside the building, but the house next door parks his car there. Got the off-street parking.
On your,
Wait a
next to
minute.
your building, like a little cutout that's there, you have a little cutout.
We have a little cutout and we have a garage door. It
Yeah.
goes out to the common driveway, but we don't even open it.
Is that where the guy parks?
Yeah.
And that's, you hit upon the second thing. I mean, I think the two things I heard at the hearing and then before the hearing, we were talking about this 9 years ago, whatever it was, 8 years ago, was trucks and flood.
Yes.
We've talked all about flood tonight, and the other thing is, you know, I think, you know, if there are truck limitations, there's at least signs. I assume there's an ordinance behind the signs.
Yes.
And, you know,
Yes.
just like any other neighbor, we would have to live with that. So if there's a commercial truck that's not allowed to be parked there, you know, that's not part of the proposal. Yeah, I
Right.
think there's a loading zone there now.
A loading zone in front of your warehouse property?
It's like one of the you know, like an Xed off space.
That's the one garage door. There's one all the way down here. I don't know if you can see it.
That's not loading, that's fire.
No, it's loading. It's for,
There's a sign saying that this is a loading zone, 'cause I don't see any sign.
this is
up
a
there.
driveway apron here for, to load and unload, to pull in. That's what the.
Right, but there's no, sorry.
Yeah, and the other spot, I'm not sure what the origin of that is.
But looking at it, it looks like, so the, like a few years ago, the, fire chief and police and the township and LNI went through all of the streets and did a safety map, basically, of our streets, and did I don't know if these X's are recent or not, but did a lot of Xing out so that the fire trucks, the emergency vehicles could get through. There's no sign on the grass, it appears, at least from this photo, saying that this is a loading zone. If there's no sign that specifically says that it's a loading zone, then it's specifically marked off because of making sure emergency vehicles can get through. And because you have your driveway, because they tried to, at one point in time, on many streets, they had Xed out spaces opposite of driveways. Especially for the more narrow streets, so that vehicles could get in and out, or emergency vehicles could get in and out of those driveways to help the residents or businesses and so forth. So from this picture, there's no sign. There would be a sign here and here saying that it's a loading zone. So if you don't actually have the physical sign saying it's a loading zone, that's not why it's Xed out.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. I mean, the fact that there's a driveway there that supplies access to the
Access
rear
to
of
it.
many of the residences, I bet you I mean, it looks like there's a turning radius
Yes.
considered there. And then, you know, I think they just kind of continued the X, I'm guessing here. But why would you leave it un-Xed for that little 6-foot strip? Because then it's just going to tempt somebody to park illegally there.
Right, and I think
And hang
to
over.
make sure that a fire truck could park there and then help the residents on either side of the street.
Yeah, so I mean, you're right. It's probably not a loading zone, but in terms of where you park your pickup, you pull your pickup into the
Right, you pull
driveway.
into your driveway
So
and that's,
There's a driveway apron there, so
perfectly
they're
fine.
not allowed to park in front. So I think that would stay the same. And you know, obviously, if the user of your building if there's no trucks on the street, there's just no trucks on the street. I think that, you know, that's something we can live with.
right. And the trucks ordinance did get adjusted last year because so many residents have actual trucks as their personal vehicle and not just
A work
a
truck.
work truck,
Right.
right? So there are requirements, though we are having issues on implementation because not everyone carries around a tape measure who goes out to give tickets. I believe at this point in time, our parking enforcement is focusing on the commercial vehicles that have commercial labeling. But our police have been ticketing trucks just because they have a truck license plate. So that is definitely something we got to work on. Sorry, abstract completely. But yes, sorry, I talk with my hands too much. But yes, that's definitely fire code, making sure everyone stays safe. I think that's all that I had. I know there was a resident also mentioned to me about, and I know this falls back to flood, bushes on his property being cut back to make more space for turning into his driveway or something. But there aren't shrubberies on your property at all, right? You're all warehouse, right?
Little patch of grass.
Okay, okay. So I think that's all I had.
All right.
Thank you.
One more thing. All right.
This is a severe safety issue that I'm not sure that you guys are aware of. Some of us came last night to the open township council meeting. There was a very, very serious fire it was at like 4 o'clock on Father's Day, so June 16th. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it was devastating. And actually from the back, from the driveways, it started on the deck of 8100 and 8102. So they're the first twins right after where Windsor comes in. So
Mary Cannon's house.
Mary Cannon's old house, exactly. Gutted. The fire traveled down on my side of the street, on that side of the street. The Pico wires are attached to our houses. And then there's a wire that goes across the street to the poles. It traveled down the wires all the way down to my house, ignited my deck, and almost ignited my house. So the concern for fire safety right now is at the forefront of my mind, and probably, I mean, it didn't affect you guys, but you still had to hear all the noise. It was potentially, I mean, luckily nobody got hurt or killed, but 7 fire departments had to respond to it. It was very serious. And the fact that our wires go on our houses, and the fact that that warehouse could be, I mean, there could be HMAT stuff in there. There could be,
Yeah, we would be compliant. I mean, yeah.
combustible, right? And that would
I
have
don't
to
think there's
be.
a proposal to store anything.
Yeah, I mean, that would just have to be, and there would have to be, fire alarms and stuff. I mean, the fact that that whole block didn't go up was truly an act of God, and the fact that Highland Park is right up the street and we have such a great fire department. So that was really serious. And also, just for the record, I did pull all the deeds. I pulled the deed for the warehouse and for all the twin houses. And just so that you know, Councilwoman, the warehouse the only people who have access legally to that driveway are the twin houses on that side. We have it in our deeds, but the warehouse does not. So, and Mr. McCusker has not been using it. That shared driveway is only for the residents. Yeah, from where it hits the street there between the warehouse and 8008. That is only for the residents. It's in our deeds, and it's not in anybody else's deeds, just so you know. Okay, thank you again. Sorry, that is really the last thing.
All right, I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. We are at our 7 o'clock. Do you guys have any other comments or closing thoughts? Everyone else? Thank you.
Just for clarification, I'm Councilwoman Blackwell. I'm here just to listen and get more information on what's going on. The bottom line is he's lost 9 years of income, and if anything results, it will result back to a warehouse. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that again?
So the bottom line is he's lost income for 9 years with this issue.
It's been in court since,
It was a 2016 appeal. So yeah, it's
2016,
8 years
so-
now, something like that. But he's owned it for 9, and we don't know what the court would do. So you never know if it's a completely an all or nothing thing. But the chances, I would guess, is that it's either going to be an all or nothing thing, where it's either you get a warehouse or you don't get a warehouse.
so the township's deciding right now, do we want to, continue with what the zoning hearing board said and defend that against the appeal, or do we want to settle somewhere in between with the applicant, maybe a warehouse with conditions, or maybe not a warehouse with other conditions? We don't know. All we wanted to do at this point in time was see if we could find somewhere amenable, talk to the community, and see, where the residents were at and where obviously the property owner was at.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If there's nothing else, then I will close out the meeting. Thank you everyone for coming and speaking. And I hope this is helpful. If you hadn't signed in, please do, just so I can make a record. And then if you want to put your email or phone numbers down there, I can let you know if there's any other action or meetings or anything else. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.